our clock before we start?
Yeah, so Emma and Lila have made us a clock. This is made from upcycled materials, and they did a talk about it earlier. And they adapted it in the last hour or so, so it's a timer. And I believe, there's some buttons on here somewhere. Okay, so that's the top button. That starts a 5-minute timer.
Can we have the lightning speakers up at the front, please?
Yeah.
And the first one.
Oh, good point. Thank you.
Go on, sorry, interrupt. Oh yes, and sorry, we need one more camera operator, please, to take over that position over there. Would somebody like to be a camera operator? We've got 2 already. That's what I like about this PyCon. You ask for 1 person and 2 step up to help.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Let's see. Excellent. Yep, all good.
Okay. Well, then, are the Time Lords ready?
I believe so. So I shall.
That's yours.
Yep.
Leave it in your hands.
Thank you.
So please welcome Mark and all our lightning talk speakers, and Mark will be looking after you now.
It's fantastically exciting to walk onto a stage and then be introduced to some new hardware at the same time. So I've been briefed on how the clock works now, and we're just going to ignore it while I'm speaking. Okay. But we just need to kind of warm up first, okay? Because I feel like it's been a long day. It's the 3rd day, so I think we need to practice, right? We all know what we need to do. So if there's slides on the screen behind me, what are we supposed to do? There we go, good, pointing, that's what I like. I'm going to ignore you for the moment. And then we have tapping. Tapping, if the speaker, I will start this, obviously indicate that we need to do this. Yeah, that's a good noise. And then when we get to the applause at the end, we thank the speaker for their fantastic talk. We got whooping, stamping. I think you are ready. David, take it away.
Yeah. Shall I wait for you to reset the timer? Cool. Thanks. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm David. You may recognize me from the ridiculous amounts of tweets I've been putting out about the conference, but that's not what this is about. Yesterday, I loved the keynote. I thought it was great, but there was one teeny tiny detail, completely non-central to the main point, that bugged me that I'd like to talk to you about today. You remember that bit at the end when we were asked to pick our favorite option, and she was very clear we were only allowed to pick 1 option. That's not how you should do voting. I know that's how you all think you should do voting, because that's how everyone does voting, but it's wrong, and I would like to tell you why. So that's what's called plurality voting, and what most people will just call voting. It's a very simple process. Everyone picks an option. They're only allowed to pick 1 option, as Sue explained to us, and then you pick the option which got the most votes. And then you move on to the 3rd stage, which is be sad, because plurality voting never produces good results. And I'd like to tell you about 2 really easy alternatives that you can basically always drop in for plurality voting, and should always drop in one of 2 for plurality voting, unless you're going for something even more complicated, which I won't tell you about today. So yeah, we'll look at 2 alternatives based on particular problems with plurality voting that they will solve for you. Let's choose the version of Python. Python 3, right? Python 3 is obviously the correct answer here. 60% of people agree with me. But if I ask you which version of Python 3 and suddenly split it up, suddenly we're using Python 2. What happened here? And Python 3.6 and Python 3.7 split the vote, so that even though everyone agrees Python 3 is obviously the better choice, suddenly Python 2.7 is winning because we can't agree on which version of Python 3. This is where approval voting comes in. Approval voting is basically the same as plurality voting, except you vote for as many options as you want. And then you total up the number of votes, and the one with the most votes still wins. So now we're using Python 3.7, because it turns out that most people are pretty happy with Python 3, whichever version you use. Python 3.7 wins out. There's some support for other options. And because we weren't forced to choose which of these things we were perfectly happy with, we are now using the correct major version. Let's look at another question. Where should we go for lunch? If you're like me, this is probably the single most frequent group decision you have to make. And let's say our group has two main options to choose from. 60% of us like pizza, 40% of us like Thai, both perfectly good options. But if people's preferences are reasonably stable over time, what happens here is that these are our lunch options over time. We always go for pizza, right? Because pizza keeps being the majority, even though 40% of us wanted to go for Thai food. That doesn't seem entirely fair, does it? This is where random ballot comes in. Random ballot is another method that is almost identical to plurality voting, except unlike approval, everyone goes back to voting for one option, and then you pick someone at random, and you use their choice. When going for lunch, you should probably just pick someone at random and then let them decide, but this is how it works in theory. And now what happens is 60% of people wanted pizza, so about 60% of the time we go for pizza. But sometimes we go for Thai, and the options are spread out roughly in proportion to how many people wanted them, without having to do any sort of complicated bookkeeping and going, oh, but we went for pizza last week, you always get your way. The randomization just nicely sorts everything out in ways that are quite stable and aggregate out over time. So I've given you two options. Which should you use when? Very simple rules of thumb. It's more complicated the more you get into this subject, but this works pretty well. If you've got a big one-off decision where the decision really matters, it's actually quite important and is worth spending the time on, use approval voting. It will work pretty well. If you've got many small decisions, like where should we go for lunch, or like you want to elect a large number of people, or something like that, then you should use random ballot, because it cancels out well over the different options. And if you hate happiness and want everything to be terrible, you can keep using plurality voting. I'm sorry, I can't hear you over the phone.
Thank you, David. I think you've just made my life better. So while Mojave sets up on the stage, another name I can't pronounce. Yazebs? Can I have a hand? Oh, thank you. So you're next. Oh, and it goes red. It goes red when it gets, isn't that 0? There we go. See, the main problem with this, the design, when we can fix this for next year, is can I have a timer on the back as well? Don't be all practical about this. I want more electronics.
Use a camera.
Oh, you ready?
Yep.
Take it away. We're not actually using a timer for this one.
Hi everyone, I'm Muhewe Adetungwe. I'm a student at the University of Namibia, and I'm a founding and executive member of Python Society of Namibia, and I'm organizing committee of PyCon Namibia. And I'm here to invite you to PyCon Namibia 2019. It will be in Windhoek, our capital city, 19 to 21 February. And you know what? From here to here, I travel 5 minutes. But I travel more than 6,000 kilometers from Namibia to Cardiff. And I slept only 3 hours. And it was more than 16 hours. These are the executive of Python Namibia and the organizing committee of PyCon Namibia. And these are the people that you will see if you happen to go to our conference. And we used to have a famous people and well-known people like Luke. I think Luke was here morning time. And this is our PyNam scholar. This is a subgroup of PyNam Society. It's a Python Programming Society of Namibia. These are the best programmer in our country. They do program in Python. They won the competition last year. Yeah, that's them. If you get to go to Namibia, you'll be able to see our oldest desert. That's a Namib Desert. I think it's exists for more than 43 million years now. And this is, I think this one is very clear now. Yeah. That's our website. You can find us there, and we'll be able to update our website maybe at the end of the month now, at the end of the month or at the beginning of next month. That's all.
Thank you, Mohewe. So Marco will be our next speaker. Can I have a quick show of hands? Yep.
There was a mobile phone that somebody handed me and said was lost, and now it's disappeared. It was David's. Okay, good.
So we have a slight logistical problem, which is that our camera operator is going to the Clink this evening, which means he's not going to be for the last 15 minutes. Is that correct? No? I was told we have already solved that problem. Okay.
Hi, can I start?
Yeah, please take it away.
Can I see the clock?
Sorry?
The clock?
The clock, yeah, it's okay. I'll sort out the clock.
Hi, I'm Yazebs. I'm a Python developer. I'm going to present you a little library, a little hack called Autoboto. It's for people who use Amazon Web Services programmatically, perhaps with Boto 3, and who love PyCharm. So what's the problem with Boto 3? Boto 3 is a great library. It provides programmatic access to close to 100 Amazon Web Services. It has great documentation, and by great I mean big. It's available online. Unfortunately, there's no autocomplete, and when you call it, you pass dictionaries and you get back dictionaries. A great data structure for internal things, but not great for public-facing APIs, I think. So there is this. My screen is bigger. Anyway, so there's missing something. Basically, there's a library called PyBoto 3. I've never used it. It generates type hints, so it gives you autocomplete. I like to reinvent things, so I wrote another one, Autoboto. Autoboto is on Python 3.6, uses type hints, internally data classes, the backport. And all the parameter names are changed to snake case. And this is how you install it. And this is a quick demo. Oh, this would be cool. Okay, I can't type like this, so I'm going to switch to ready solutions. So if you go to Boto 3, then when you want to, whoa, I'm going to type a new. So this is our S3 client, and look what it can do. It can do 4 things, none of which makes sense, right? Okay, now we're going to use the other one. Sorry. Where is Autoboto? This one. Okay. Now with Autoboto, am I at the bottom? Where am I? I just anywhere. So with Autoboto, you type S3. I have it right somewhere. So it gives you all the methods. And then, but that's not all, because, for example, S3, if you call a method like list. Oh, thank you. One, yeah. Say list. We know there's something called list objects, and cool. And then we need list objects v2. First one, yeah? Cool. So it gives me what to do. I need to pass the bucket name. Autoboto demo. No typos. Cool. Now, Boto 3 returns dictionaries. So you have to either go online to read the documentation, or you have to run it and print it and then run it again. But with this one, you press dot, and there you go. So you have contents, which is the list of objects. Yeah? But you know there's pagination, so you're not going to get actually all the results if you call this. So you do paginate, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Paginate. Does it work? It works. Okay, what does paginate return? Pages, right? I forgot what. So anyway, there must be an example somewhere below. And actually, that print obj also is auto-completed. So all these are data classes with attributes. Yeah. Where am I? This is how you install it. It's not for production. Thank you.
So while Marco sets up, can I have a show of hands from Sam? You're going to be next. Okay. I've been struggling with a cold this whole conference, but today I feel great, finally. Or rather, I feel normal, which comparatively feels great. Are you ready to go? Okay, quick round of applause for Marco.
So I'm a data scientist, and I'm a brewer. One is my job title, the other one is the job title I should have. If you don't like beer, maybe you can still enjoy the other topics of this presentation. If you do like beer, my suggestion is to learn about brewing and brewing ingredients and brewing styles and culture and whatnot. So starting from ingredients, you know, when you read that your beer has 5% alcohol, in the other 95% is mostly water. So water is one of the important ingredients. The next one is barley malt, typically, or any kind of cereal, really. That's the backbone of your beer. Hops for bittering and flavor and aroma, and finally yeast for the magic, transforming sugars into alcohol and CO2. The process is something you could do in your kitchen. Take the grain, put them in water, mash them in some controlled temperature so you get the sugars out of them. Then take the sugary water, bring it to boil, add the hops, and finally cool it down. That's happening in just a few hours. Finally, fermentation is when the magic happens. To give you an example of what a recipe looks like, this is a fairly complex one, so you have a lot of different malts, different mashing temperatures and whatnot. But in principle, if you're a brewer and I give you something like this, you should be able to replicate the results, and the results turn out to be quite good in this case. Now, when I'm looking for inspiration, luckily there are many communities online, and the homebrewing community is kind of like the open source community, so they like to share recipes, they like to share information, and there are many, many websites. On top of that, some people also like to kind of put things in a structured or semi-structured way. So with a few lines of Python, you could quickly download thousands and thousands of recipes and run some analysis on top of them. So, as I said, I'm a data scientist. Clearly, deep learning is what you have to do apparently these days. So this is a neural network, family of machine learning models. Fixed input and output for this kind of vanilla neural network. So some people develop an extended model, recurrent neural networks, kind of like a neural network in a loop. If you unroll it, you can see how you can work on sequential data. If I give you a recipe, it's a sequence of steps, a sequence of ingredients, so sequential data. We're talking at the end of the day about natural language. So as an extension of recurrent neural networks, some people developed what is called a long short-term memory, where you can inject the notions of forgetting and remembering stuff, so you can work on a broader context. Luckily, Python support for machine learning stuff is quite nice. So with just a few lines of Python, you could easily write a neural network model and run it on all your data. So a few lines of Python, few pounds on AWS because you need a GPU, and you're good to go. Now, when we talk about AI, often we don't talk about ethics. So are we taking the fun out of it? Yes. Also, more importantly, is the beer any good? Not yet. So if you want to know more about neural networks and machine learning and over-engineering stuff, the suggestion is join your local data science club. In my case, it's PyData London. And if you want to know more about brewing, join your local home brewing club. In my case, Beer Boss from East London. And just to give a plug to my friends from East London, we like this kind of community events. There is a brewing event coming up in London at the end of November where you can learn more about brewing and meeting people who like to brew. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marco. So Sam, if you'd like to get set up, and then we will have Vicky next. Can you just have a hand up, Vicky? Thank you. So I turned the display around, so you can't see it, which is a shame, but I decided that it's for me and the speaker. So it's important that I can see it. It's important the speaker can see it. But more importantly, I have to admit that sometimes if a talk is wrapping up as it gets to 5 minutes, I give people a little bit of extra time.
The Socialist People's Republican PyCon anti-communist speaker.
Yeah, but nobody listens to them, splitters. Okay, if you'd like to take it away.
Okay, hi, I'm Sam. Sorry, ready to go?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sam. This is my talk about just cultures in development environments. I say that's the title, but it's mostly about the second bit, and that's handling mistakes sensibly. It's also a tale of one of my mistakes, and not the one about talking about my mistakes in front of a crowd of loads of people. So, about me. I first started off, I currently work at Assyrium. We've got a stand outside. You probably walk past me plenty of times today. Do say hello tomorrow if you're here. Previously, though, I worked at a small e-commerce startup. And when I say startup, I was the first employee. So as I said before, the current title was just culture in development environments, but we could have had an alternative title, which is this. That time, I almost gave away a guitar. So specifically, it's this guitar here. This is a Ed Sheeran model, or specialized model of the guitar. It costs £700, and the way we can tell it's an Ed Sheeran guitar is by the little Division logo there. Fans might recognize the symbol. So I worked on the payment system for the site. I'd done 2 previously, and we were integrating with a new payment processor. So I worked on the system, I tested it, thought it was good, and pushed it to live. A few days later, my boss came into the room and with a slightly dire expression on his face saying, someone's managed to order one of these guitars without paying for it. So normally I would have thought that you'd expect it to be a well-meaning music student who's perhaps a fan of Ed Sheeran, but I quite fancy imagining that it was Hackerman from Kung Fu Fury. So given the situation, I felt like I'd cost the company money. There was only one thing to do: panic. It was a £700 guitar, and as a brand new developer, that was quite a bit of my wage package. It also cost me I would have thought it would have cost me my reputation. Could have even cost me my job. It was in the first few months, possibly even my career. Of course, then I realized that's not going to happen. So the next step after panicking is don't panic. None of it was going to happen. My boss was fairly relaxed about the whole thing, and we disabled the payment processor as a brief precaution. So it turns out that our client had actually noticed the lack of payment on the order and had not sent the guitar out for delivery. They'd actually told us about the problem, which meant rather than having a rather happy Hackerman and a slightly morose Ed Sheeran, we had an unhappy Hackerman, and I assume he's happy there. He seems to be having a good time. His brand wasn't devalued. So basically, oops.
what had happened was the customer had gone to the payment processor. They'd been redirected out of our site, but they'd cancelled there. They were brought back onto our site, but the way I'd coded it, I'd assumed that if they came back to our site, it was a success. Unfortunately, not very safe, that. I should have made it fail safe. Quickly identified the cause without panicking and pushed the solution in less than half an hour. We could re-enable the payment processor after that. So the things I learned from that were test everything. Test more than just the happy path. Make sure you test the failure not only on your own site, but also on any sites you integrate with. So you should also test if it's hard or boring. This leading into the title of the talk, though, adjust culture. This is something that I borrowed from the aviation and medical industries, and we've got a sort of a summary of it here. A culture in which operators are not punished for accidents or decisions taken that are in line with their training and experience, but where willful harm is not tolerated, also gross negligence. Now, we're not operating aircraft, we're not cutting people up and sewing them back together, so I thought I'd try to distill it down for what it means for me in a development environment. First of all, a just culture allows people to be open about their mistakes. If people can be open about their mistakes, they can more quickly rectify it. You're not arguing about who caused the problem, and people are not trying to hide away and behind excuses. People are being open to mistakes leads to a much better working environment. You can fix things more quickly. People are more willing to take criticism and give criticism back where fair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Now, while Vicky gets set up, Sean will be next. Thank you, Sean. So I think I may be slightly unique, or at least my family might be slightly unique with this conference, in that my daughter was up here demonstrating one of the sparkly unicorns on the first day. She was at the Children's Day. And I spoke yesterday, as well as doing this.
It's not.
And then my wife's giving a talk tomorrow. So my entire immediate family will have been on this stage at some point by the end of the conference.
Did that work? Did that fail? Yay, excellent. Okay. Oops. And hallo, jeg heter Vicky, og jeg har lært norsk I fritiden min. I'm sorry to the STTRs. Hi, my name's Vicky. I've been learning Norwegian in my free time. Now, I have spectacularly failed to immerse myself in the culture of Norway because I haven't visited at all. But I have been teaching myself online. I found a wonderful site called Transparent Language. They have a little word of the day in an iframe. And if you click through, I'm not going to do that on here, it's a screenshot. It shows you a new word. I thought, that's nice and everything, but I don't really want to do that every day. I want it to just come to me in my terminal. So I thought I'd write a script to do that. The first step was trying to find out how the words were delivered. That's an iframe. I clicked through it while watching it in the network inspector. I found a nice URL there. It has a standard format. There's a date. And there is what looks like a time in seconds since the epoch. So if you run that, you get some XML. And that looks pretty good. It's got a Norwegian word, it's got an English word, it's got phrases. Excellent. So how do I turn that into something I can read on my terminal? Beautiful Soup is very good at this, and I think I've probably stepped ahead of myself. This is actually what I wanted to say. So I've gone through that already. Yes, I used Beautiful Soup to get each individual word. That was the simple script. I put it in my bash RC, and every day when I open a terminal, it gives me this, or some variation on. Tusen takk for litt. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicky. So Sean is going to get set up now, and then next will be Chaba. Can I just have awesome? So we're halfway. How long is this going to take? Oh, okay. Go, Sean.
Hello everybody. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to electrocute people and get away with it. Now, there are many ways of doing this. Most of them are not conference appropriate. So, we're going to be talking about this one in particular, also known as how to reboot a human. A bit of background about you. Some of you may have seen me last year. I taught CPR as a lightning talk, so I thought I would do the next thing, which is this. I am a first aid trainer with St John Cymru. We used to be St John Cymru Wales, but we decided calling ourselves St John Wales Wales made no sense. So, why would I need to electrocute someone? Well, the heart's a great organ. It pumps oxygenated blood around the body, but sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, that's bad. We need that. The heart not working is a bad thing. It gets into a state best described as angry jelly. All your muscle fibers should be contracting, and the other one, which is the opposite direction, I can't remember what it's called, together. Sometimes they stop, and they start moving at different times, so they start wibbling and quivering. This is called fibrillation. It can be reversed. Now, you might have seen these in public. These are magical boxes filled with electricity. No, they're called automatic external defibrillators. There are public ones called public access defibs. That is a Zoll AED Plus and a LifePak CR Plus. They're the most common models, but you may see others. They all operate in fairly the same way. So let's break down what's in the name. Automatic, it has a very smart computer in it and does all the analysis for you. It will not shock someone who doesn't need it, which is a good thing because we might get it wrong. I would not like to be the person programming that because the amount of testing they must do is, if you saw my code, yeah, you wouldn't want these anywhere near you. External, they are not inside the patient, you're attaching it to them. Do not put them inside the patient. That's a rule. And then defibrillator, it stops fibrillation. It does this by actually stopping the heart completely with a shock of electricity. And yes, we are turning it off and on again. So, okay, fine, don't really care how it works. Can we get on with, electrocuting someone? So the first thing we need to do is check if they need defibrillating. If they're talking to you, they don't. We do this by following what's called the primary survey. It's fairly common in first aid. I'm going to teach you very quickly how to do it. You may have heard of it before, Dr. AB or Doctors ABC, depending on who's taught you. So it's an acronym mnemonic of things we go through. First thing you do, check for danger to yourself, to the casualty, to other people. If they're in the middle of a road, you don't want to go run to them and get run over. So that is key. Your safety comes first. Check for response. Give a command, open your eyes, gently shake them. No, tell the patient to open their eyes, don't open your eyes. Gently shake them, gently. Shout for help when help arrives, which it hopefully will. Ask them to bring an AED. Hopefully they will know what you're talking about. If they don't, then next presentation. Airway. You need to open their airways to get oxygen into the lungs. You do this by tilting their head back and opening their mouth. It's called the head tilt chin lift. And then you need to check if they're breathing. So you look, listen, and feel for breathing by putting your ear next to their mouth. So you're feeling for air against your cheek, listening for breath sounds, and looking for the rise and fall of their chest. You do this for 10 seconds. If they're not breathing, you call 999 and turn on the AED. The AED will ask you to start do CPR. Go watch my lightning talk from last year. I'm not going to teach it again today. Yes, you can zap them now. So, every AED has a clearly marked on and off button. When you press it, it will start talking to you, and it will tell you what to do in clear language, hopefully, clear language. You open the pads, it's usually in a sealed foil packet, and you stick them to the patient's bare chest. You will have to remove clothing. Most AEDs come with a set of scissors or such to remove clothing if necessary. One on the upper right shoulder and one on the lower left side. Now, there are two caveats here. One, on the patient's upper right shoulder and lower left side, not yours. And secondly, please resist the urge to start singing the Macarena. It will then say, analyzing, don't touch patient. Listen to it, don't touch the patient. And hopefully, if they require defibrillation, it will tell you. At which point, yell clear, because that's the best bit. This is being filmed, isn't it? Make sure no one's touching the patient, including yourself, and then press the big flashing button. Now, you are delivering electricity to the patient. Make sure no one is touching them. It will hurt a lot. Great, so you've electrocuted them, fantastic, well done, you've got away with it. What do you do next? You just keep doing what the AD told you to do. It will say continue CPR, or it may say stop CPR, it may say call for help. Do what it tells you to do. If it tells you to stop, please stop. If help arrives, such as a paramedic or a doctor or any other healthcare professional, and says, please stop touching that person, please stop touching that person. And if you're too tired to continue, then you need to look after yourself as well. So first aid is a valuable skill and it does save lives. If you can, please take a course. No, this doesn't count. I have a bonus slide because I have a bit of time, I think.
One more slide.
So some statistics. There was a survey, a trial done recently called the Pre-Hospital Assessment of the Role of Adrenaline Measuring the Effectiveness of Drug Administration in Cardiac Arrest. It has an acronym. They really wanted that acronym. So we have found, the statistics quoted in this, that early recognition of a heart attack and a call for help prevents 1 in 11 deaths, or may prevent 1 in 11 deaths. Starting CPR early prevents 1 in 15 deaths, and using an AED prevents 1 in 5 deaths. So having the confidence in using an AED is great. They are meant for anyone in public to use. That's why they're called public access defibs, if you can use them. And a quick sneak preview of next year's talk. Alex is going to kill me for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Oh, we got some good foot stamping going. Yeah. So it's time for people to leave for the clink. That sounded much more threatening when I said it out loud. So Thomas, you're next. Can I have a quick? Awesome. You're going to be nice and easy to set up. That was quick.
Okay.
Go, Csaba.
Hello, everybody. My name is Csaba Palankai, and I'm going to talk to you about other Python library for testing. This Python library called Context. By the way, it does nothing to do with the context managers, and it helps you to write BDD-like tests. Okay. So what is this context? It's a that simple descriptive testing for Python. No need to use any custom decorators, any custom managers, or anything when you write your test. So you will have a very simple readable code. You will have to write a BDD or given when test style tests, and you can run it with PyTest. Running with PyTest is gave me, for example, a very easy use case for integrating with ID. So I like that one as well. How to use this test? So what you can see here, this is my test file, and this context actually recognizes those highlighted words. So when you have a class with when, this will be your test class. Then you will have a given function when you say given, what is given for your test case. And basically the next method is a because method, where you actually do what you're supposed to do, with what your function is supposed to do. And the following methods usually contains a word it or should, where you actually do the assertions for the expected outcome. How to run the tests is fairly simple with run context. I think it's give you a fairly readable output as well. As I mentioned, you can run it with PyTest. I like PyTest, although I think it's less readable, but still, you will have the great output. Why to use it? So first of all, wording is related to the real world, so we don't use much in our test, as I showed you. There is no such a test or setup function. There are given or there are when or because words. I think it's easier to understand. Non-technical people can read it. And even though, so in our company, sometimes we show the code to our non-technical business people, and they can even understand our code, which is super great. And if something is failing in our test, because you read complex sentences, it's easier to understand what went wrong. And it's not just for acceptance test. Basically, it can be used for any kind of test, even simple unit tests. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Java. Woo! So Thomas has actually listed some things that we will and won't be featured in this next talk. So I'm quite excited to see how this all works. Loving this. I won't give it away by saying what it says on this card in case you haven't seen it already. The title of the talk is Metaformers. Okay. This is much more complicated than I thought.
Can I try and not use this before? Yeah. Hello, everyone. I want to talk about metaphors. So a metaphor is a figure of speech. You talk about something in terms of something else, something it's not. So Katy Perry might say, "Baby, you're a firework." She doesn't mean you're an explosive for use on bonfire night. She means there's something spectacular. Listen to the chorus. Ignite the light. Show them what you're worth. Shoot across the sky. Make them go, oh, oh, oh. Let's have a look at some metaphors for computer programming. What is it that we do? What do we like? If we look at it at a different angle, maybe we'll find out. Prop. You could say that we're writers. That's not a metaphor. It's literally true. We edit text, we review it and publish it. Not very helpful. It's not unhelpful either, unlike the next couple of examples for which I blame recruitment consultants. If you see an advert for a programming ninja, it doesn't mean they want a Japanese mercenary trained in assassination and espionage. Must have 2 years PhD in an agile environment. It means it's probably a dull job and they'd like some more applicants. I'm not going to get this on, I haven't tried this one. Similarly, a rock star's unwelcome on most programming teams. We'd like a bit of creativity and a bit of swagger, but we don't want the rampant egotism and the tantrums if they don't get the right colour M&Ms in the dressing room. How about sport? Well, we do sprints, we try and score points, we have scrum meetings, we discuss tactics. Or is developing a product a matter of assembling the right ingredients, following the tried and tested recipe, feeding it to the customers and adjusting it to taste? There's something organic about the way software grows, and tending to a code base is a form of gardening. You're encouraging the new features to blossom and bear fruit, and you cut back the dead code and try and swat the bugs away. Computer science is what we study. The art of computer programming gives the details. The practice is often described as a craft. I wish I'd borrowed some knitting needles, but I've got scissors here. You have this progression from novice through to master, where you learn the tools of your trade, how to use them properly. And even if end users might not see the beautiful code that we're crafting, we like to think they feel the quality, and we pay attention to detail. The most popular metaphor is construction. So you can hear it in the job titles. We have engineers, we have architects, project managers. But I don't think this reflects software's softness properly. If you're making a building, you start with a foundation.
Sorry, I forgot to set it, so ignore the timer.
I'll keep going. It should be 5 minutes. You start with the foundations, then you put up the walls, then you can't move the foundations. That's not true in software. You can start with the roof if you want and put the wiring in next. Then you can move the foundations, swap a new garbage collector in, maybe change the hosting platform. It's as simple as changing the CSS on the front end. Or think of a service backed by a collaboration of microservices, which may be being reconfigured. That's not construction, it's communication. Communication, that's the metaphor that I'd like to champion. Programming is communication. I said I dismissed writing, but it's what we do. We write to communicate our ideas amongst ourselves. And with the platform, it's how we tell the platform what to do. We write things down. Not just writing, we draw pictures, we get together around whiteboards. We come out and talk at conferences. We listen to our users. We're communicating. We're in the language business. Computer languages, yes, but also the dialect and idiom of a code base. Language is about metaphor. And you can see things like design patterns, they're shared metaphors, factory, observer, visitor. And any local code base has its own system of metaphors, and it grows by extending them. So a metaphor for programming is the development and formation of metaphor. We are, to coin a word, metaformers. As Katy Perry would say, oh, oh, oh.
Thank you, Thomas. Woo! So, Sam, I'm sorry I didn't warn you. Yeah. And then after Sam, we've got John. Quick hands up. John, awesome. I've never seen a lightning talk that's advertised costume changes and props before, so I was very excited to see that.
It's on my screen. Can I have some help?
So we're getting down to our last one or two talks, I think. In fact, I think it's looking like John's going to be our last talk. Who's going to the Code Dojo this evening? I'm wondering. Ah, that's pretty good. Who hasn't been to a Code Dojo before? Oh, that's exciting. That's good stuff. So we've run similar dojos up in Edinburgh. It's a great way to get developers at different experience levels together, and you create creative projects in a short period of time. Try not to overthink it is the one guideline I can give you.
Yes. All right. My husband's an Ubuntu dev, I am not. Okay, so I want to start by saying this. Ooh, it's gone weird. We'll figure it out. I want to start by saying this isn't just a shameless plug. This will make more sense, but for me to tell you, I need to tell you a little bit more about my story. For my point, but I do have a point at the end, I promise. Okay, so I need to tell you a little bit about me. So I am Sam Basak. I'm a maths graduate, a former data analyst. I am currently unemployed. For health reasons, I decided to leave my job. I decided I hated being a data analyst and I want to become a software developer. Maths background is generally quite a good background for it. As you noticed on there, I'm unemployed. So why am I unemployed? Is it because I'm terrible at coding? I would say I'm very strong belief I'm very average. I did some coding with my job. A couple of people have spoken to me about my calculator. Come talk to me. I made a calculator. It plays music. You type 5, 6, 7, 8. It plays steps. Also, we have a pet lawnmower called Geraldine. I've programmed her, so she'll look at MetCheck, and if it's been raining, she won't go out because we don't want her to ruin our grass. So I'm distinctly average. I'm not a terrible programmer. I'm not amazing, but I'm not terrible. But I don't have a job. Do I not have a good support network? As I alluded to just then, my husband is a Ubuntu and Debian developer. He really likes Python. I've also got our best man, Ben Nuttall, is in the room, who won an award last night for helping out with Python, and another one of our best friend, Dave Jones, also got an award last night. I have a pretty good support network. Like, I should be able to learn these things. But I still don't have a job. There's a couple of reasons possible. So I'm dyslexic, so learning's a little bit tricky for me. I can go Google something on Stack Overflow, but I can't just say, oh, I want to learn about, I don't know, Django or something. That's a bit of a difficulty for me. One thing that I've noticed is that quite a lot of the courses online, Codecademy and stuff like that, they will teach you lots of the syntax, but they won't teach you the lingo. So when I'm having a look at job descriptions, for example, I don't understand most of what they're saying. When I'm coming to talks, I don't understand what people are saying quite often, just because I don't really get that lingo. And the other thing is that where are the jobs? So I can't really find any jobs for junior devs, and I've a couple of years past graduated, so they won't let me do the graduate job. So what's the point? I'm not just here asking for a job. I do have a point. How do you get from a hobbyist level developer to a hobbyist developer to being an actual software developer, being actually employed? All of the tools, like I said, seem to get you to a certain level, but then how do you make that leap? And the reason I wanted to give you a bit of my background is basically to say, well, if I can't do it with my background and my support network, I'm sure there must be loads of other people out there who are hobbyists, who would like to change their career, who just don't know how to do it. And I think that's probably quite a big issue. I'm not so much bringing it up just for me, but I think there must be loads of people out there. And I don't know what the answer is. If you do know what the answer is, or if you've got any ideas, come contact me. But yeah, I think it's something that really should be addressed, because we're trying to get so many adults into programming, and there doesn't really seem to be a path from that hobbyist, from all of the online resources, to actually getting a career from it. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sam. So John is going to be our last speaker of the night. Okay, yeah. I think so. Yeah, sorry, we're coming up against the end of the session, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Please tell me it's mirrored.
The further down the list you are, the less likely you are to make it into the slot, so we purposely pick extra talks so that we don't end up finishing early. I'm really sorry about that. Are you here tomorrow? Put in the card tomorrow, and there's a chance you'll be picked for tomorrow's session as well.
Ready?
Go, John.
Cool. So some of you may know me from previous conferences. You've probably had me tell you this several times to you already. This is just to make sure that everyone in the room now knows this story. So yeah, snowboarding saved my software career. Back in 2003, 2004, I was having a bit of a, I'm 28, I'm having a crisis in my life. I was fed up of IT. I was working a pretty horrible company doing just the most awful stuff imaginable. I had low confidence. I was getting imposter syndrome, as I discovered later on, because I was convinced people were going to discover that, in fact, I was no good at programming. There's always this thing about, you know, have you done 7 years of experience, or have you done 1 year's experience 7 times? And I was kind of feeling like that. So basically, I quit my job. I took a load of savings, went over to Australia, became a snowboard instructor. And yes, snow is in Australia. Unless you've seen a kangaroo hit a ski bus, you will not understand that. And I absolutely loved it. And it was interesting because it's a technical subject. There's lots of physics, there's lots of biomechanics, there's lots of psychology, science, basically. And you've got to teach that to people that don't understand that subject. There's lots of jargon you have to translate to plain English, and I'm not talking about the, ooh, cowabunga dude, and I pulled a method grab off a blah. You know, there's a lot of very technical stuff to do with it. And you learn people skills. This was something I really struggled with. I was very shy, and my confidence, I couldn't stand up in front of a group of people like I am now and talk to people. I could barely do it in front of my peers. I certainly, at a meeting, if I had an idea, I would definitely not tell anyone about it. And also I learned how to adapt things to different situations, equipment, environment, how to communicate with people. I specialize now in disabled snow sports, so I have to deal with a wide range of learning disabilities, physical disabilities, which has also given me a massive appreciation for making accessibility, not just in snow sports, but in software development. It gave me confidence, improved my health. My physical and mental health has improved massively. I used to have panic disorder. I haven't had that since I don't know when. And my general physical health has improved considerably because I'm getting exercise. I'm stuck in an office during the week, so working at weekends at my local snow dome, that really helps me out. It took me out of my comfort zone, which was the important thing. I'd been in my safe zone for a very long time, and as you know, you don't learn when you're in your safe zone. And when I was out there, it sounded weird, but I was out in the lovely scenery, all the mountains and so on, and I missed programming. I really wanted to get back into programming. So I decided when I returned back to the UK, I would apply all these skills to my software career. So I do talks such as this. I did a neurodiversity talk a couple of years ago, for example. I do mentoring, so I was helping with the Django Girls coaching. And I've tried to improve my skills by sort of learning, finding out all kinds of different stuff, not just in snow sports, but in computing and so on. I continue to teach snowboarding. I've also now qualified to teach skiing, and I'm working towards my adapted level 3, which is the highest qualification for disabled snow sports. And I'm loving it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. So before I ask for another round of applause for all our speakers tonight, I'd like to say we unfortunately, unfortunately we have, I think, six talks that we didn't make it to this evening. So we were a bit ambitious. We've been getting through so many talks in an evening, and it's a combination of people doing slightly shorter talks on previous days than the full 5 minutes. So that's always good, and maybe just getting set up a little bit quicker. So for these people who don't get selected, please, if you're here tomorrow, do submit another talk, and it will go into the pile of talks and hopefully be selected tomorrow. So we'll have another chance. And now I would like to get everybody to give me a huge round of applause for all the speakers tonight who have been fantastic. And I will see you the same time tomorrow.